Good morning, YouTube. It's your buddy ChopTalk hitting you with another entry of DFS Diary, brought to you by the one, the only DFSArmy.com, your one-stop shop for all things DFS, MMA to PGA. We've got you covered with 20 coaches, 40 staff, and 2,000 plus members, always talking daily fantasy sports. Group thinking, helping each other get better every single day, talking strategy, talking plays, talking chalk, talking pivots. Everything that you want to get better at daily fantasy sports is inside our VIP program at DFSArmy.com. So head down to the comments section, click the link, use coupon code CHOP, CHOP, and join us to become a member today. If you didn't notice, I already put it out on Twitter. I had another $3,000 winner last night. It happens every single night here with people that plug in and use the content, the tools, and the coaching. This is Paycheck Friday. You know what that means. That means you've got a little bit of money rolling around in your pocket, and you can certainly invest in your own game, become a better member or a better player today. So follow that link, head down. While you're down there, click the like, click the subscribe if you like the type of content that I put out. I really do appreciate that. Ring the notification bell. And what we're going to do today is run along into some NBA and some NHL. I don't know that we'll talk too much football right now. I would show you the wide receiver and cornerback chart, but we're still finalizing a few things on that matrix system, so it's not exactly ready to go, but it will be probably this afternoon. Geeks picks come out today. Follow the list, man. Geeks picks. Rated NBA or NFL and MMA player on Roto Grinders, so you've got yourself an expert right there. And on top of that, his list has produced two $100,000 winners and a $300,000 winner the last 3 weeks in NFL. So if you want to get the goods, it's right there. If I can't help you, I know the people that can. It's very, very simple when you follow me inside DFSArmy.com. NBA is really, really simple today. We're just going to blow through your and ones. You've got a large slate. You're going to want to follow news. You're going to want to see First Look by CG. You're going to want to see the injury report inside our coaching channels if you already are a VIP. But the fastest thing that I can do for you is show you again how we break down some of these players and just really quickly, entry-level research, really quickly narrow down your player pool to who fundamentally is in the best spots tonight. Point guard. Take about the top 5 or so. Russell Westbrook, Mike Conley, Steph Curry, Jamal Murray, Eric Bledsoe. These are about the guys. We're studying these and one ratings even deeper right now, and we're going into the thresholds. What does an 8 mean? What does an 11 mean? What does a 17 mean? We're going into and we're starting to back test these numbers. How often do these ratings bring 5x and 6x? A lot of it depends on the guy's salary. But we're finding that those rated over $11,000 and those rated over a 26 in the and one typically are not bringing 5x value. We're starting to wonder if that's not maybe a blowout. The matchup was so good that we didn't need to use him all the way through the game and get his full complement of work and minutes. But there are things there that this rating system will continue to reveal as we dive into it behind the scenes at DFS Army. So what you need to know right now is it's an all-encompassing matchup rating that shows you who has the strongest matchups on the day. And right now, that would be Westbrook, Conley, Curry, Murray, Bledsoe. If you find some cheaper guys in here, you might consider them for some value. That always works. Over on the shooting guard, we can also gauge an overall depth of the position and see how strong. See, we've got a lot. We might pay down in this position tonight. We've got some cheaper players. Maybe Jordan Clarkson becomes a viable play. Dennis Schroeder becomes a viable play because they're lower cost salary guys where everybody else, you don't need to necessarily pay up. Basketball is a different sport, but you don't necessarily need to pay up in order to gain the advantage on the field because everybody's going to be pulling around, 4.5 to 5x tonight, at least projected. That's one of the ways that I look at positional scarcity when I talk about what is the most important position tonight. In often cases, it's the most scarce position, the least deep position. That's the one that I'm typically trying to dive into and take the best of the best inside that position. I can take my value out in here where the position is a little bit deeper. I'm not sacrificing as much by saving some money. DeRozan, Thompson, Clarkson, Russell, Schroeder, maybe Jimmy Butler. These are kind of the guys you should be focused on or keying on or diving into and doing your research on. Find their usage numbers, find how the matchup might play into, find their travel schedule lately, how much have they been playing this week, and figure out, try and take some educated guesses on what's going to happen tonight. That's really the nature of daily fantasy sports. Small forward, Giannis, and again, we're still fairly deep tonight, so we may not need to pay up all the way for Giannis or LeBron James because we come all the way down here before it. Now, it really drops off from the 13 to the 9. You might not want to go below Osman, but you've got Giannis, LBJ, PG-13, Kevin Durant, KD, whatever you want to call it. Rodney Hood, there's a surprising matchup for such a cheap guy. I would imagine we're going to want to key on him at some point tonight because of a salary saver. You might have him slotted into one of your spots. That would also mean that if you can get a sense that the public is going to go there, now you can pivot off of that and kind of pay up for the position in both spots instead of just one. You don't always have to do a dollar for dollar pivot to make yourself contrarian. In some cases, you can take that cheap guy, pitch him out, and then end up with two high-priced guys and then get a completely different roster construction because you're going to need to save money somewhere else where everybody else is paying up. So your situation or your lineup just got flip-flopped a little bit. And one of the best places to do that is center, honestly. But there's roughly your top 5 or 6 rated players there. Power forward. We'll see if this kicks in and gives me a little bit of depth. Now, see, we're a little bit more scarce. We drop off a little bit quicker down below, down in here into the lower ratings. LaMarcus Aldridge, Blake Griffin, Anthony Davis, Kuzma, Ibaka. These guys are going to be kind of on the fringe. These are the guys that you would want if money was no object. Obviously. You also might look at Blake Griffin if you play on DraftKings. He's priced down 4% on Fanduel compared to DraftKings. He's got himself, DraftKings might have priced him up over the last 24 hours, 48 hours in the matchup that he's in, anticipating that he's going to have a very, very good matchup this morning or this afternoon. Therefore, you might put a little bit of extra weight on him, being that he's at the top of a less deep or a more scarce position. And that might help you break some ties with your roster. When you look at the center spot, Jokic, Embiid, Thompson, Gasol, Steven Adams, maybe Andre Drummond. Look at Nerlens Noel. He's always down there, but he doesn't get the minutes. He doesn't typically get the run. Projected at 17 points, only 14 minutes. If news breaks and he suddenly becomes viable, obviously you need to always have him in the back of your mind. But generally speaking, we're looking up here. Jokic with the 4.9. Value rating is really interesting because there's been a lot of buzz on Jokic lately about how much of a distributor he is, how well he facilitates. That's a good thing. It helps the floor, the overall floor of a player like that, especially at the center position. But you might also look into some of these other guys that are a little bit less. Looks like we're going to be paying up, $9,000-$10,000, but you might take a Tristan Thompson or a Steven Adams to be a little bit different tonight. If you can focus on ownership, if you've got a site that shows you ownership, we have it in our domination station coming out around 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. We'll get ownership projections that we include for our VIPs, for our members, that can help tip you off to where that chalk might be going and finalize that pivot that you want to make to get yourself a little bit different, in a little bit different spot from the rest of the industry. So an overall situation, we might come over here to the value, kick those centers off, go back to the overall player pool, and sort by value and see who the domination station or who the projections like the most today. Who's scheduled to bring the most value? Josh Hart's interesting. Caldwell Pope is also up there. These 5.5 and higher guys, Stanley Johnson, Bam, Georgia, these are guys you're going to want to watch news on, obviously, see if they slide into good spots. There may be injury news that has already put them in a good spot. That's the kind of stuff that you can run away and you can go check on. But you can write these names down with the top 5 of each position, and you've got yourself a very solid player pool that doesn't require a lot more research today other than maybe tie breaking and picking, do I like this guy or that guy? Do I want to pay up at this spot or would I rather pay down at this spot? And start constructing your lineup. And that's one of those spots where you can start relying on our coaches inside DFS Army to help guide you. You get into a tiebreaker spot and you say this guy has this kind of usage and he's scheduled for this kind of minutes, but this guy's a little bit cheaper. Which one would you play? Or which one do you think has the stronger matchup, or whatever the case may be? And our coaches will often help you make that decision. They may really quickly just say, I'd go with this guy and move on. But sometimes you can facilitate a very, very good discussion that will in turn teach you what to look for the next time you get into that situation. That's oftentimes just lather, rinse, repeat what's going to make you a better player in the DFS world. It's very, very simple. It's a very simple concept, but not everybody can duplicate it. Not everybody can, can essentially put together the team that can help you the way we have here at DFS Army. So running over into the hockey, we don't have our own research station up just yet. The gentleman that's in charge of that works nights. He's probably getting home from work, if not taking a quick nap, and he'll have it up a little bit later today. But we haven't shown roto grinders for a while, so let's dive in there. I don't see any Vegas lines or any numbers to speak of. I can look at the lines, of course. We have our own line page on our research station, but we've only got 4 games tonight. And I'm looking at spots that I'm going to try and target for goalies. Who do I see? Where do I see things going? And one of the ways that I do that is I go to NHL.com. You've seen me do that, where I will go through, the last 30 days, look at who's scoring goals, who's not scoring goals as far as a team is concerned, and see if I can't put a little bit of a green light on an offense for the night that's facing a softer defense. Yesterday, I went and compared it against the last 10 games as well, and turned into what looked like a moving baseline. If you've seen buyers and sellers, the article that I have produced a few times for DFS Army, you'll see that in there I'm tracking a baseline, a larger baseline of say 10 games. I'd like to get out to maybe 20 games, something like that. Some kind of a more or less stable number of points, per game that isn't going to typically move too much, too dramatically on those monster games. Like when Patrick Laine was in St. Louis last time, scored 5 goals, moved his moving average quite a bit, but it might not have moved his 20-game average all that much. So I'm looking for a guy who gives me an idea of what he typically is doing. And then I'm going to take a smaller baseline, a smaller moving average, say 5 games, something that might get past that 1-game outlier a little bit, but not a lot. I don't mind if it affects. Hockey's a game of hot and cold streaks, and I want to catch these guys when they're streaking. And if that last 5 games is running above the last 20 games, that baseline, then he's running hot. And I want to take pieces of him when he's in good matchups. Same thing, if he crosses below that baseline and he's running cold, I don't want to take him, because his price is not as sensitive as his fantasy points per game, obviously. So I'm trying to dodge the overpriced guys and buy the underpriced guys by using a method like that. And it's been working. It's been working just fine. And it's a fast way to cut your research down to next to nothing on a given day. Now, I'm not doing that necessarily today. I'll come back in our research station and maybe produce a VIP video for the guys inside the Army. But what I want to show you is at least somewhere you might want to start, you might want to target. I can tell you that the Blues are the 28th ranked team on offense over the last 30 days, and they're 17th in the last 10 days, 10 games. So that 28th up to 17th tells me they've been scoring lately, tells me their offense is trending up. I look at the Jets and I see they are 6th in both spots. They're holding steady as an almost top 5 scoring offense. So they're a strong offense and they're consistent. When I look at the defense for St. Louis, I see that they're ranked 22nd over the last 30 days and they're ranked 7th over the last 10 games. That's a bad sign. Ranking 22nd means that you don't allow a lot of goals against, but ranking 7th means all of a sudden you do. The defense has taken a hit. The defense has softened up. Teams are scoring goals against the Blues in bunches right now. Therefore, you take an offense like Winnipeg, who's very steady at a top 5 clip, and you put them into a defense that's trending downward, and you've got a positive matchup for the Winnipeg Jets tonight. When I look at San Jose and Dallas, I don't see a lot. I see San Jose 18th, Dallas 22nd in terms of goals for. 19th for San Jose over the last 10 days, 23rd for Dallas over the last. So no different, no real change. Nobody changed. They're still really bottom half offenses right now. And they're not showing signs of life. Defensively, San Jose is 11th over the last 30 days, which tells me somewhat soft, but not terrible. Dallas is 29th, which tells me they're not allowing goals. When I go out to the 10 days, nothing else changed. San Jose went from 11th to 13th. Dallas went from 29th to 31st. So Dallas actually is allowing fewest goals in the league right now over the last 10 games. I'm not targeting those teams. I may because of tonight's limited options, and you'll hear it as we go a little bit further down the list. The crap that's on this slate in terms of offense, I may have to take some Dallas and hope for the best. Because Dallas is facing about the softest other than the Blues and the Jets. Now, the Jets are not exactly great defensively either. I didn't cover that one. The Jets were 24th over 30 days, and they're 8th over the last 10 days. So they've been giving up a lot of goals lately, too. You've got two teams that have been giving up a lot of goals lately. That's a sign of a potential shootout. St. Louis is on the uptick offensively, and Winnipeg's holding steady at the 6th spot. So that's, if there's going to be a shootout tonight, odds are it's here. This would be where you'd be focusing on skaters for the most part, both sides. Once again, hope for the best. Now, no one right now other than Winnipeg is a top 10 offense on the entire slate. So it's not like I'm expecting a super high scoring slate. I might get one. It is hockey. But I'm not expecting to see one. I'm not expecting this to be some great. So I'm going to try and grab whatever I can where I can. And if the games all go low scoring, which they could easily do, in fact, they should do that before all of these games go high scoring. Most of this should be a lower scoring night. It's going to be very, very critical in where you take your goals, where you get your production. Instead of stacking an offense that's not maybe set to go off, like a Dallas, you might try and peg the one off out of it, the hot skater and Jamie Benn. That might be what you're really after. Or the Valiant rattle off and hope he scores or hope he factors in. You wouldn't necessarily just jump all over it and take 4 skaters from it. This doesn't feel like the night for that. When I scroll down to Minnesota and Edmonton, again, nothing exciting. Minnesota 15th in the last 30 days, 26th in the last 10 days, so trending down in terms of offense, not scoring as much. Edmonton 30th and 30th, so they just stink. They're just not scoring goals. Doesn't mean McDavid can't break a slate. Doesn't mean Chason's not a value. Doesn't mean that some of these guys aren't viable fantasy options. It just means don't expect them to go score 6 goals tonight. And of course, I just put the jinx on them, and they're going to. Because that's how Oppo Chapo rolls. I'm telling you, I can put a hex or a jinx on. Ask the guys inside the army. If I really bash a dude, roster him. He will go off. It's the funniest damn thing I've ever seen in my life. And it backfires on me. I should Oppo Chapo myself. When I look at the last, say, the defensive side of these games, with Minnesota 30 days ranked 20th, ranked 22nd over the last 10 days, Edmonton 23rd to 27th. So again, we're talking about somewhat strong defenses against offenses that aren't scoring, and in Minnesota's case, it's trending the wrong direction. This game should play to an under. You know, you got a couple of defensive teams that don't have offenses to really tear apart those defenses. Now, of course, like I said, this will be the game that goes off because I'm telling you there's virtually no chance of it going off, so it will. That's hockey. Carolina and Anaheim. Carolina, 31st offense in the league over 30 days and over 10 days. So puke, worse than Edmonton. Anaheim 23rd and 14th. So at least Anaheim's scoring a little bit. They're coming up the ranks in offense. So maybe there's an outside shot there. Other than the fact that defensively, Carolina's 31st over 30 days and 29th over 10 days. So they're tough. Carolina's not allowing goals. Anaheim is not allowing goals either. They're ranked 25th in both spots. So you've got a whole bunch of teams that are in that bottom third of the league in terms of scoring, and in the top third of the league in terms of defense, meaning they don't allow a lot of goals. That's not a good matchup for a high-scoring great night. You might not find a lot. Again, that's one of those nights where if one player has that outlier performance, like a McDavid goes off, you're going to need him to really comfortably cash or get deep into GPPs. So it's not like everybody's in such a great matchup that tonight is wide open. It's that everybody's on such a, kind of a crappy enough team where these games are all going to be kind of defensive enough that the games are going to be at a premium. The goals are going to be at a premium. So it's kind of wide open in that respect, if that makes sense. The only real spot that I see that I'll be spending a lot of time here is St. Louis and Winnipeg. I think that's the kind of chalk you're going to want to eat. I don't think I'm going to be looking at either one of those goalies. I think I'm going to be looking over here at one of these three games and trying to find the better goalie. Carolina tends to shoot a lot. Anaheim does not allow a lot of goals. Carolina's not scoring right now. I might just lean on John Gibson and be done with it. Expensive, yes. But look at my other options. You know, 77 there for McElhenney or whatever, 9, 8, 8, 76. I'm not taking it now. You could take some kind of a shot in a GPP on one of these goalies. I mean, they can both get hot. They can both have great games. We've seen it before. But generally speaking, these goalies are all pretty high priced anyway. Your options are Jake Allen or Curtis McElhenney here. That's just kind of where, otherwise you're paying up. And so you're going to want one of these safer goalies, typically speaking, and you're just going to hope that he gets the win and he faces more shots than his counterparts. This is where some of your offense should come from. Maybe a spot out of Dallas, maybe a spot out of Anaheim. The rest of the stuff I'd probably largely avoid. But if I see some hot players that are running, you know, I might take them as one-offs. I'm going to need my research station for that to compare the last 5 versus the last 10. But what I can do is at least jump in here and talk a little bit more about some of what we're looking at with tonight's, you know, fantasy, who's been producing, you know, fairly well across the season, who's the consistent producers. I think I did last 4 weeks actually, so good. I at least cut it down to 12 or 13 games. And I'm going to sort this out by positions here, and I'm looking at these numbers. Blues and greens are great, and I'm looking for out-of-place salaries. Somebody like Lindholm who should be providing value because he's up near the top of the slate in production, but he's way down in price. That's how you're going to bring value to your squad. It's just another way to do it. So I'm looking at defense here, and it's very, very scarce tonight. It's very, very short tonight. There's nobody in the blue, nobody really, really hot. There are a few in the green. These guys are going to be the guys you might want to key on. If you wanted Edmonton, you'd probably stack Clefbaum in there. You're definitely going to want Lindholm as cheap as he is tonight, in my opinion. Some of these other guys are all kind of hit and miss right now. Nobody's really producing great. Even Brent Burns at his high price is not producing phenomenally. He can produce well above that and hold it for quite a long time. So again, if I looked at his last 5, his last 10, I might suspect that his last 5 games are not maybe unless he's just gotten a recent uptick. I haven't been paying much attention to him because he hasn't been hitting my radar. I don't know how he's been playing over the last 3 or 4 games. Jake Treba in Winnipeg is your highest producing Winnipeg defenseman right now. 5,300 is a reasonable price for a team that might be in a good spot, that might actually be the best producing team on the slate tonight. So Lindholm, Treba, probably my leaders in the clubhouse. I might look at a Clefbaum. I might look at some others, but generally speaking, that's a pretty short player list. Maybe I'd throw an Asa Lindell in there because I said I might take a shot at Dallas, but I'm really not looking at many other players. Unless, of course, like I said, the L5s and the L10s show me differently when I get to look at those later today. So when I come back up to center, double click and resort that out. Now I do have Scheifele. Winnipeg's in a good spot. Scheifele's producing. It's as good as it gets. Connor McDavid is paying up a little bit more for that for a guy who's not necessarily producing, not necessarily in a good spot. Feels a little bit overpriced tonight. Didn't take the defense out of there. So now I'm looking at just centers. Tyler Seguin, there you go. There's a center that's in an okay spot. It's a suppressed price for him as well. Eric Stahl's been hot lately. Getzlaf is in an okay spot tonight. Ryan O'Reilly carries about 38% of the St. Louis scoring, so if it's going to happen for them, he's usually going to be involved. Looking down this list a little bit, I mean, it gets pretty ugly pretty fast because they fall down into here into where they're just not really producing. So again, tonight's a little bit wide, you know, a little more wide open than usual. You look at your wings. Line and Wheeler, again, Winnipeg's all over, hitting the map all over the place. Radilov's nice value at 6,400. Timo Meyer's kind of a little uptick in the last game or two. I've heard his name mentioned a few times. Jamie Benn, I know from watching the numbers, has been a little bit hot lately. Ehlers he's been great access to that top Winnipeg line. Tarasenko, Case and Aberg might be my value plays on this slate. Anaheim's in an okay spot. I may need some of that value to get into Winnipeg. So if my value is on Anaheim and my target is looking like Winnipeg tonight, well, I've got a problem because this is going to end up being a very, very chalky combination of Anaheim for value with Lindholm and Case and Aberg or whatever, and then the big guns of Winnipeg. So how do I counteract that? How do I get away from that chalk? Well, I may take I may take St. Louis. I may take O'Reilly and Perron. I may target Dallas heavier and stack this top line. I may honestly, instead of taking these big guns that people are going to run to, I may come down here and take Connor and Little and Treba and let that be my stack. Then come over here and take Sagan and Ben. And that should get me slightly different than everybody else. I'm not talking about San Jose. They're not in a great spot, but San Jose, Pavelski's been pretty hot lately. Meyer down here. You're not really stacking, correlating quite right, but it's one way to go. Do I see this game over here blowing up? No. If it does, is McDavid probably a piece? Sure. Stahl's been a little bit hot. Zucker's been a bit of a value play lately. Dumba's been great. Spurgeon has been also very, very good for the value, for the price. Maybe you take your shot at Winnipeg, and then instead of going to Anaheim for value, you come over here. Maybe Gibson winds up having great odds tonight and ends up being the chalk goalie, in which case you stack Carolina. You take your value out of Carolina here and then run into Winnipeg for the rest. See, part of the thing, and I'll leave you with this, part of the idea of being contrarian is you don't need to be as contrarian as you think. You have so many options in hockey. Line one, line two. Do I include the defense in the stack, or do I just go centers and wings? Do I stack all of line one, or do I take 2 from line one and 1 from line two? You've got so many moving pieces and so many moving parts that you really don't need to worry too much about ownership. You might, on shorter slates like this, worry about what games are people typically going to target. Is there a typical build that's going to stand out to people? And then you might think about ways to get off of that. But you can do that in several different ways. You don't have to say, well, maybe I'll run Carolina and Minnesota tonight. You can build around a foundational core, a chalky, good, solid core, and then move off of that in 1 or 2 pieces. Maybe you say, everybody's going to be on Winnipeg. It's just right. It's just what I have to eat tonight. That's fine. And then you say, where's my value? Well, damn, that's in Anaheim with Lindholm and Aberg. So I've kind of got to take those two. Okay, so now I've got 1, 2, 3 Winnipeg guys, 2 Anaheim guys. I'm taking John Gibson as the chalk goalie. There's 6 of my 9. Where am I going with those other 3? Maybe you go 1 off, 1 off, 1 off. Maybe you take 2 Minnesotas and a Dallas. Maybe you take 2 Dallases and an Edmonton. There's a million ways to go. That's why this whole ownership thing can be a little bit overrated. I mean, yes, you have to think about it. Yes, leveraging those lower ownership plays is a good thing for you. When they work out and when they hit, you love seeing that because you fly right up the leaderboard and pass everybody along the way. But you don't need to spend your life, thinking about it, revolving everything that you do around low ownership plays, because the higher ownership plays, especially on a night like tonight, are going to be the higher ownership plays for a reason. There aren't a lot of good spots on this slate. So you're going to need to take a chunk of the chalk just to hopefully give yourself a chance. Now, you may, if you build 5 lineups, you may take one of those lineups and completely fade Winnipeg, St. Louis, and just run, Minnesota and Carolina or something like that in one of those. But if you're playing in one of those tournaments where it's only 300 people to win, you don't need to take that kind of a chance to win. If you're playing 10,000 people, you probably do. Because if that combo hits and you don't have it, somebody else is going to, and you'll see them at the top of the leaderboard. It's just how that works. The bigger the GPPs get in terms of entries, the kind of crazier you have to be, the more unique, so the more emphasis you might place on ownership or having a couple of goofy plays. You can do that around, say, a multi-entry type of tournament where you've got a core of Carolina. I take the same 3 stack, Teravainen and Aho and Stahl, and I hope the hell they go off. And I'm running them in damn near every one of my 20 max lineup, my 20 max. I'm running them 15 of my 20 lineups. You kind of go all in on that contrarian core. And then you chalk up the rest with different combinations of these guys from Winnipeg, these guys from St. Louis, these guys from wherever. That's one way to go. Most people, I think, try to take kind of chalky cores and then mix and match some of the contrarian stuff because I know the contrarian stuff isn't going to hit that often. That's fine. But which way do you want to do it? Do you really want to hang your balls out there and go on a contrarian core and then mix and match chalk around it? Or do you want to go with a chalk core and mix and match contrarian stuff around it? It's your call. It's your lineup. It's your budget. Just sharing multiple ways. These are the things we like to talk about inside DFS Army. These are the strategy concepts that we can talk about in terms of where do you want to go? What would make sense for you? How are you allocating your contests? Are you playing in giant GPPs where you need to take that risk, where the reward is there for the payoff? Or are you taking too much risk for the tournaments that you're in because you just don't need to do that much to win them? So contemplate if you want those conversations to come to the forefront, you want those conversations to get a little bit deeper, contemplate investing in your own game, becoming a member inside dfsarmy.com. Like I said, Geeks picks are coming out today. We've got our optimizers locked and loaded. Research stations are coming. We've got content for NBA coming, for NHL coming. We've got content dropping, a couple of podcasts too for NFL. We're always rolling. I don't know the niche sports slates with tennis and soccer and MMA and those types of things, but I know that PGA is coming in a couple of weeks again around the start of the new year. So we're getting ready to ramp up another big sport. And quite honestly, that's just how we make people better. We spread them out. Use code CHOP, CHOP. Jump in, click the link, dfsarmy.com. Hit the like and subscribe button while you're down there. A retweet is my favorite. Head out to my pinned tweet on Twitter. Help me with January sweeps. We've got ourselves a handful of retweets this week. You guys are all going to be entered into the sweeps, and we're going to run this all month long, and hopefully we open up another spot here in another week or two, and we take a couple of more drawings again. I love doing that. That was a lot of fun, and I can't do that without your help. So thanks again for all the help. Thanks again for all the support, and I will see you guys. I guess this is Friday. I guess I'll see you guys on Monday. Take care, guys. We'll talk to you at the other side of the weekend.